Alright guys, picking up where we left off. I just did a little recording on the startup process and how I kind of plan for a departure and get everything set up. Now we are in the actual we're in the plane ready to go. And let's get ourselves moving here. Now, first thing you always want to have open when you're taxiing is a taxi chart. It's important to know where you are. Alright, so radios are set. Let's just make sure we come down here, look at our radios. 122.8 is what we're looking for. That's our location. We taxiing Tango 2 Bravo 12 to 28 right. So let's make our announcement. Fort Lauderdale traffic, American 268, taxiing to runway 28 right via Tango 2 Bravo 12, Fort Lauderdale. Alright, now, the thing that's going to make us accelerate even faster is turning off the, releasing the parking brake. It's going to really get us going. So, let's get over to our before takeoff checklist. Lights, strobes are on. Fuel cross flow on manual. Flight attendants advised. Let's check TCAS. TCAS we want on normal. This is why we want our checklist.
Down clear runway 28 right.
Radar and terrain display. I have the parking brake released, do I not? Shocks are removed. So what's the deal here? Why are we not? Doesn't seem like we're taxiing at a very good speed here. And the CAS is checked. Takeoff configuration, okay. We still have to hit that the toggle button, and then that turns on our flight director. Now we've got 4,000 in the altitude pre-select. And why do we have that?
Ladies and gentlemen, the captain has advised that we are now cleared for takeoff.
Because we are competent pilots, that's why. Now the reason we've got 4,000 in the altitude pre-select is, as discussed in my previous video, we're flying the Snapper 2 departure today, and Snapper 2 departure says top altitude 4,000. Now what is this line right here, ladies and germs? This is the ILS, that's the ILS hold short line. Now what that means is there's an instrument landing system at this airport, and we are a huge piece of metal and electrics, and if we go past that big that line, the ILS hold line, that means that we are we may interfere with the ILS frequency as sent to other planes if we go past that line. So before taking an active runway, you put your lights on. Alright, now let's pull up the departure procedure. Now that 4,000 foot altitude is good when we are on these black lines, which are the established parts of the departure procedure. Snapper is where the departure procedure ends. That's why it's called the Snapper 2 departure. And so after Snapper, we can go above 4,000 feet. So going to hold short here because we don't want to interfere with other traffic. I do want to pull this in just a little bit, that range, so I can see a little better. Alright. I'm gonna turn on some. I'm just gonna put on some of these lights in case we get in the clouds and it gets dark. Those clouds are dark. So, right panel right there. Alright, probes are set. That's on. Flaps are set. Thrust reversers are armed. That plane just landed in the trees. Alright. Fort Lauderdale traffic, American 268 taking runway 12 for, correction, taking runway 28 right. It's going to be a right downwind departure, snapper 2 to the east, Fort Lauderdale. It's probably a useless radio message, but that's okay. I mean, useless in the way that I kept yammering on about departure procedure that I'm flying. So we do have the new driver from NVIDIA installed today. Performance looks a little bit worse than previous one, but we'll see. Alright, there. Heading indicator checks with the runway number. Alright, we're going to bring it up to 40%, let it stabilize. Okay. I always like to look anyway. Toga power is set, 28 right is correct. Engine instruments are in the green, airspeed is aligned. 80 knots, cross-checked. Positive rate, gear is coming up. Alright, 600 feet, I'm going to go autopilot engage. Nav mode, speed mode. Come back to climb power, we're only going up to 4,000 feet. So, we're definitely going to have to bring back the power here at some point. Bring up that first degree of flaps. We're on speed 250 knots. That's what they told us to do. Flaps. Now we're going to want to come back on the power early. Fort Lauderdale traffic, American 268 right, crosswind departure off runway 28 right, departing to the west, departing to the east, Fort Lauderdale. Now we're going to be settling at that 4,000 feet, which is awesome. Next altitude I'm going to want is, let's call it 13,000. So once out, select captures, and that's captured. I'm just going to set that up to 17. What did I say? 13,000. Now, let's get a quick look outside and see what our airplane looks like here. It looks pretty cool. The scenery is just amazing, it really is. Let's get back in here, make sure we're not over speeding, which we are. So we're going to come back on the power big time. Alright, now these stars that don't have a circle around them are fly-by waypoints. You can see the plane cut inside that waypoint, which is fine. If you have, let's see, do we have any fly-over waypoints in this departure procedure? We do not. So the ones without the circles around them are flybys. You do not have to go directly over them. Now this, the RNAV departure, the RNAV into our destination, VC Bird, with the circle around it, that's a fly over waypoint. That's the missed approach. You have to fly over that waypoint. You have to fly over that waypoint because that's the hold for the missed approach. So, if you're flying manually by hand, remember that. And this is why we put our lights on, because we get into the clouds, we're going to want to be able to see our instruments. Alright. Climb checklist. Let's go over here real quick. I'm keeping an eye on that airspeed. Alright, fuel cross flow is back there. I'm going to go turn the disarm thrust reversers off. Leads in APU. Leads are on auto. APU door is closed.
Double quote.
Alright. Remember, the speed is in your right hand in this airplane. Cast is checked. And what I mean by that is this is not an auto throttle airplane. So we have to stay Lincoln, let's see, Lincoln Gateway Snapper before we can climb. So this is pretty cool, I think. I'm nudging along down here in the clouds. What we got out in front of us here. And we'll just hang out here 250 knots. Alright. Let's go to the legs page. And this will also tell us Lincoln Gateway Snapper. So we got another 40 miles of hanging around here before we can get going. Total air temperature is 26 degrees Celsius. There shouldn't be any reason to worry about cowl ice. So we'll just hang out for a bit. I love being in the clouds anyway, so it doesn't bother me. Like I said, so when you look at the departure procedure, the reason it's called the snapper to departure is because it ends at snapper. This dotted line is not part of the departure. Now, transition altitude is one thing that's standard in the United States, but top altitude is one of the things you want to look for. That's the highest altitude you can go while on an established segment of this departure. What is an established segment of this departure? Any of these black lines, any of these solid black lines. You see how we're on the solid black line? We're going to make a right-hand turn here. We'll be on the solid black line to gateway. And then we take another bit of a left-hand turn here. We're on the solid black line to snapper. So the entire time that we're on these solid black lines, we are on an established segment of the departure. When you are on an established segment of this departure, this is really annoying, the top altitude you can go to is 4,000 feet. The whole purpose, so from snapper on transition, maintain 4,000, expect clearance to filed altitude. The whole point of departure procedures, people want, I mean, maybe people don't wonder, but if you are wondering what the point of departure procedures or SIDs, you either call them a D, I think DP was the old, maybe SID was the old term. SID was standard instrument departure, and then DP is a departure procedure. It's just that the FAA has too much time on their hands, so they change what they call these things. But the whole point of a departure procedure or a STAR, which is a standard terminal arrival route, the whole point is so that you have all this information and ATC doesn't have to spend half their day telling it to you. Yes, it is for managing traffic flow. This whole thing here keeps us out of the way of the people coming in to run to these runways. Keeps us out of everybody's way. And there's probably, I would imagine, part of this is probably due to Miami International being to the south here. It's probably why they keep us low until we get out here. But the whole point is that so you've got all this information. Otherwise, ATC would have to call you up with the, please stop doing this, please. Otherwise, ATC would have to call you on the radio and give you a clearance saying, climb on a heading of 276, intercept course 287 to dread, stand on track 322 to shells, They would have to tell you all that. They'd have to tell you all this. They'd have to tell you the top altitude, climb and expect 4,000. So they'd have to give you all this information. So instead of having to do that, they just write it all down, accelerate to 250, and you just do it. You don't have to. It just frees up the radio, eases controller and pilot workload because we don't have to write anything down. They don't have to read anything to us. And it just makes life easier for everybody. And that's the whole point of these procedures. See, the other thing I was going to tell you guys about departure procedures. I talked about it a little bit in the previous video, this right here, takeoff obstacle notes. This SID, standard instrument departure, requires takeoff minimums, runways, with a minimum climb of 500 feet per nautical mile to 580 feet. Now, what does that mean? 580 feet, or 500 feet per nautical mile. Standard climb rate on a departure is, I believe, 278 feet per nautical mile, I think. The reason you have to have a higher climb rate, so this is for jet aircraft. Jet aircraft are fast. Accelerate to 250 knots. Obviously, you're not going to be going 250 knots at close to the ground, but you know, we rotated 150 knots, and so basically what it's telling you is there are some objects off the takeoff ends of these runways that you might hit if you don't climb at 500 feet per nautical mile to 580 feet. Now, feet per nautical mile, so if you're going 60 knots, you cover 1 nautical mile in a minute. If you're going 180 knots, you cover 3 nautical miles in a minute. So that's why they give you ground speeds. So 500 feet per nautical mile will change depending on how fast you're going. 240 knots would be 4 nautical miles a minute. That would be 2,000. And if you're going 500, if you need to climb 500 feet per nautical mile, if you're going 240 knots, that would be 2,000 feet a minute. So right here you can see 250 is 2083. It's pretty close. 3,000 ground speed of 300 knots. That would be 6 nautical miles per minute, and 6 times 5 is 300. Yeah. And so you'd have to climb. If you're covering 6 nautical miles in that minute, you'd have to climb 2,500 feet per minute. No, you're covering 5 nautical miles. You're covering 5 nautical miles per minute. So you have to climb at 2,500 feet per minute. Nautical mile is 1 mile adjusted for the curvature of the Earth. That's the difference between a nautical mile and a statute mile. And yes, I am fun at parties, just in case you're wondering. One thing I have not remembered to do: center the heading bug. And there's Snapper. We can now climb and maintain. My mouse is like holding this. Go speed mode. Climb power. Now we will start climbing like a homesick angel. Because what speed mode does is it maintains whatever speed you have set. And because I've added power, I've added energy, the only way for the airplane to keep that speed is to pitch the nose up. So turn these down now. I'm not going to need them. Because now, as you can see, we are no longer at an established part of the departure. Let's go up to 17,000. I'm being my own ATC because this is America and I can do that. 17,000. I picked 17,000 right here. So once we get through 10,000, that is when we turn the landing lights off. And by the way, if you notice, the pressure is pretty low, 1006 or 2972. Pressure is low because of the hurricane. There's 10,000 feet. Let's get ourselves moving here. 290 knots. See, now in order to accelerate without adding power, the nose has to pitch down to accelerate. So the nose is going to pitch. It was at like 2,400 feet a minute. Now it's going to pitch down, and once it hits 290, you will see this 1.6 go back up because it's got the speed it wants, and now it's got to do something with the energy. Airplanes are so cool. See how that's increasing? Because now it's at 290 knots, and in order to maintain 290 knots, the only way it can do that is to pitch up. That's part of that whole thing they say, pitch for airspeed, right? So we'll say goodbye to the state of Florida. Say hello to the Bahamas. And yeah, we're climbing through 14.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are now serving sandwiches.
230. Just randomly picking that. Let's turn off the seatbelt signs so people can get up and go to the bathroom. And I think that will conclude our departure video. Just kind of my random thoughts on departures, I guess. Climbing through 17,000. Let's clear ourselves all the way up to 35. And two things to know about the climb. When you climb through, see this is blinking, you climb through 18,000 feet, that is when you go to the standard altimeter setting, 1013, hit the standard button there. Got it again there. So that's what you do at 18,000 feet. And the only next thing to think about in a climb is at 31,600 feet, it switches over from knots to Mach numbers. And what does this mean for us? See, this is our climb page, target speeds. So we climb at 290 until it switches over to Mach numbers, which is at 31,600 feet. And then you dial it back to 0.74 Mach. So you're going to keep it at 290 until 31,600. And you'll see this Mach number is going to be, it's going to keep increasing as we get higher and higher because the air is getting thinner, and so we're traveling through the air faster. It's a whole different story. by the time we get to 31,600 feet, maybe I'll hang around and I'll show you that. By the time we get to 31,600 feet, we're going to be at probably 0.78 Mach, something like that. And once we get up there to that, into that atmosphere, our climb rate is going to come down quite a bit. We're probably only going to be climbing at about 1,000 feet a minute, 1,200 feet a minute. And so we'll dial the speed back to 0.74, which will be about 265 knots. It'll be down here somewhere. And then again, as we've been talking about, in order to slow down, without changing power, in order to slow down, the airplane will have to pitch the nose up, and we will climb better. Pitch plus power equals performance. That's the way to think of things. Gosh, look at this. It's so beautiful. So cool. Pitch plus power equals performance. It is a really slick looking airplane. Alright, see that Mach number is still climbing and climbing. One thing I want to check as we're going up is the environmental control system. Alright, temperatures are normal. Alright. Got a little bit of time here. One of the things you do, you want to go through, there's the ECS. You want to make sure that everything's green. Cabin altitude is 4,700 feet and climbing at a rate of 400 feet per minute. Pressure is good. You can hit the step button and it'll take you through each of these buttons. So we've gone from ECS to hydraulics by hitting the step button. Here's our hydraulics. 3,000 psi across the board. Temperatures are good. Pressures are good. And I always keep an eye on that airspeed. If I'm looking over here, I'm looking at the airspeed there. If I'm looking around here, I'm looking at the airspeed here. Gotta keep an eye on the airspeed. One thing that will ruin your day in this airplane is forgetting that. Alright, so let's hit the step button. We'll go to the next page. APU is off. Generator 1, generator 2 are both working. Everything's connected. Step button again. That will take us to the DC electrical page. DC electrical, everything looking good. Alright. Fuel is balanced, temperature is good, APU is off. Everything is looking fine. Flight controls, trims are good, that's on the main page. Trims are good. Everything looking good here. Everything in the green. Anti-ice system is functioning. Normally we don't have an anti-ice on, but everything is green, looking good. Doors, this is an important, make sure you don't leave any doors open. And one more, that gets you back to the PRI page. And then hit it again, that gets us to the stat page. Here we're good. No smoking signs on. Again, the trims are all right here. Pressures are all right here. Cabin pressure is all right here. That's your CAS. There's nothing there to worry about. Quick look outside. Look at this. This is where Microsoft Flight Simulator just excels. Look at it. Unbelievable. Alright, we'll come over here again. See, we're at Mach 0.77. And see, we're down to 1,000 feet a minute. That's what I was talking about earlier. Because we don't have very much excess thrust at this altitude. So in order to maintain 290 knots, the airplane's got to pitch the nose down so that it can maintain that speed. So we're crawling. So we'd be crawling to 35,000 feet if we left it right here. 1,000 feet a minute is like what a Piper Cherokee climbs on a decent day. You guys still awake? Alright. There's 31,000 feet, Mach 0.78. Let's dial that back now. Well, let's wait till it switches over. We're getting up close. I don't like being that close to the red line here. 31.6. This number will switch over to point whatever Mach number we're at that altitude. 0.795. See that? There we go. Mach 0.8. Now what we do? Dial that back to Mach 0.74. And the airplane will pitch the nose up to slow down because again we haven't changed our power. If the power is constant, the only thing the airplane can do to change its energy state is pitch the nose up or pitch the nose down. So now we've gone from 1,000 feet a minute to 3,000 feet a minute, and that's going to help us big time. Been quite a longish climb to altitude because we were held down at 4,000 for such a long time. So it's been like a half hour. And this is one of the reasons I like flying out of Fort Lauderdale instead of Miami, because the scenery out here is just so much better. The scenery to this side, the north side of Nassau. Alright, so we're coming up on 35,000 feet. And we want to cruise at Mach 0.78. Now remember, there's no auto throttle on this plane. So once the plane levels off at 35,000 feet, because it is not pitching up or pitching down, the only way for to manage the energy state, which is effectively the airspeed, is using the throttles, but the airplane doesn't have an auto throttle. See, the out select is captured. So now I set this to 0.78, but the airplane will not stop at 0.78. The airplane will stop in terms of speed at whatever speed this throttle setting will give me, which is overspeed. So what I want to do is, first of all, adjust my head so my neck doesn't kill me. But you can see I'm 0.772, 773, etc. So I want to start pulling the throttles back to a power setting that I think is going to give me roundabout 0.78 Mach, which I think will be somewhere in the neighborhood of 85 and 1. Somewhere right about here. That's not going to do it clearly, so we're going to have to juice it a little bit here. Basically, in the CRJ and cruise, you just kind of got to look at which direction this is going, and it's going down, and I want it to go up. So, yeah, gotta add a little juice here. Put it up to about 86. We'll see what that does. And now that has changed direction and started climbing. So. Anyway, there's a climb video for the CRJ. There's Nassau, Bahamas, Nassau International Airport, and we are on our way down to VC Bird International Airport on the beautiful Caribbean island of Antigua. And so I will get you guys again on the descent into Antigua.